The Maverick Who Reshaped the World, a biography of Steve Jobs. Stephen Paul Jobs, a name synonymous with innovation, design, and a relentless pursuit of perfection, was a visionary entrepreneur who co-founded Apple Inc. and forever changed the landscape of personal computing, music, animation, and mobile communication. More than just a businessman, Jobs was a cultural icon, a maverick who dared to think different and inspired a generation to challenge the status quo. His life, a tapestry woven with threads of brilliance, ambition, setbacks, and an unwavering belief in his vision, offers a compelling narrative of how one individual can profoundly impact the world. Early life, a foundation of curiosity and counterculture. 1955 to 1974. Born on February 24, 1955, in San Francisco, California, to Joanne Schiebel and Abdul Fattah John Jandali, Steve's early life was marked by the complexities of adoption. His biological parents, then unmarried university students, made the difficult decision to place him for adoption. He was adopted by Paul Reinhold Jobs, a machinist and U.S. Coast Guard veteran, and Clara Hagopian Jobs, an accountant. The couple named him Stephen Paul Jobs. Paul and Clara provided a loving and stable working-class home in Mountain View, California, a region that would soon blossom into the heart of technological innovation, Silicon Valley. Paul Jobs was a skilled craftsman, and he instilled in young Steve an appreciation for meticulous workmanship and design. He would often involve Steve in his projects, teaching him how to deconstruct and reconstruct electronics in the family garage. This hands-on experience sparked an early interest in how things worked. Clara, on the other hand, taught him to read before he started school, fostering a love for learning. Despite his intelligence, Steve found formal schooling unengaging. He was a rebellious and often bored student, preferring to pursue his own interests. He once famously said, "I was a little brat. I could have been a problem." However, a few teachers recognized his potential. One such teacher, Imogene Teddy Hill, in fourth grade, used incentives like candy and money to motivate him, significantly impacting his academic performance and confidence. His fascination with electronics grew, leading him to join the Hewlett-Packard Explorer Club after school. It was here, at the age of 12, that he boldly called Bill Hewlett, co-founder of Hewlett-Packard, to ask for spare parts for a frequency counter he was building. Impressed by Jobs's audacity and enthusiasm, Hewlett not only provided the parts, but also offered him a summer job at HP. This early exposure to a pioneering tech company was formative. During his time at Homestead High School in Cupertino, Jobs further developed his technical interests and also embraced the counterculture movement of the late 1960s and early 1970s. He experimented with psychedelic drugs, explored Eastern mysticism, and became a vegetarian. It was also during this period that he met a crucial figure in his life, Stephen Wozniak. Wozniak, 5 years Jobs' senior, was an engineering prodigy with a knack for designing elegant and efficient electronic circuits. Their shared passion for electronics and a penchant for pranks, they famously built and sold blue boxes that allowed users to make free long-distance phone calls, forged a strong bond that would lay the groundwork for a technological revolution. After graduating from high school in 1972, Jobs enrolled at Reed College in Portland, Oregon, a liberal arts institution known for its progressive and unconventional atmosphere. However, he found the required courses uninspiring and expensive for his parents. After just 6 months, he officially dropped out, but continued to audit classes that interested him, most notably a calligraphy course. This seemingly impractical pursuit would later profoundly influence his design philosophy, particularly in the typography and aesthetics of Apple products. As Jobs himself reflected in his famous 2005 Stanford commencement address, if I had never dropped in on that single calligraphy course in college, the Mac would have never had multiple typefaces or proportionally spaced fonts. He slept on friends' floors, returned Coke bottles for food money, and sought free meals at the local Hare Krishna temple. A period of financial hardship, but intellectual exploration. In 1974, Jobs returned to California and, seeking spiritual enlightenment, embarked on a trip to India with a Reed College friend, Daniel Kotke. He spent several months traveling, studying Buddhism, and experiencing a different way of life. This journey, though not leading to a monastic existence, further shaped his worldview and reinforced his minimalist aesthetic and intuitive approach. The genesis of Apple, from garage to global phenomenon. 1975 to 1983. Upon his return from India, Jobs reconnected with Wozniak, who was then working at Hewlett Packard and tinkering with his own computer designs. Wozniak had been attending meetings of the Homebrew Computer Club, a group of electronics enthusiasts fascinated by the emerging field of personal computing. He had designed a remarkably compact and user-friendly computer circuit board, which he initially intended to share freely with fellow hobbyists. Jobs, however, saw a commercial potential in Wozniak's creation. He convinced Wozniak that they could sell the assembled circuit boards to hobbyists. To fund their nascent venture, Jobs sold his Volkswagen van, and Wozniak sold his prized Hewlett-Packard programmable calculator. On April 1st, 1976, Steve Jobs, Steve Wozniak, and Ronald Wayne, who designed the first Apple logo and drafted their partnership agreement, but quickly relinquished his share due to concerns about financial liability, officially founded Apple Computer Company. Their first headquarters was the Jobs Family Garage in Los Altos. Their first product, the Apple One, was essentially a pre-assembled circuit board. It was a bare-bones machine, lacking a keyboard, monitor, or even a case. They secured their first major order from Paul Terrell, owner of the Byte Shop, one of the first personal computer stores, who agreed to buy 50 assembled units, provided they came fully assembled. This forced Jobs and Wozniak to scramble to produce the machines, working tirelessly in the garage. The Apple I, priced at $666.66, was a modest success, selling around 200 units. The real breakthrough came with the Apple II, launched in 1977. Wozniak's engineering genius was on full display with this machine. It featured color graphics, a revolutionary feature at the time, a built-in keyboard, an expansion slot architecture for adding peripherals, and was housed in an elegantly designed plastic case, a departure from the clunky metal boxes of other early computers. Jobs's contribution was his vision for a user-friendly, complete personal computer that could appeal not just to hobbyists, but to a broader audience, including businesses and homes. He understood the importance of packaging, marketing, and creating an experience around the product. The Apple II was an astounding success, transforming Apple from a garage startup into a major player in the burgeoning personal computer industry. It became one of the first mass-produced microcomputers and found its way into schools, homes, and small businesses. Key to its success was VisiCalc, the first spreadsheet program, which turned the Apple II into a serious business tool. As Apple grew rapidly, Jobs's role evolved. While Wozniak was the technical wizard, Jobs was the charismatic visionary and a demanding taskmaster. He pushed his employees relentlessly, insisting on perfection in every detail. His management style was often described as intense, abrasive, and even tyrannical. However, he also inspired immense loyalty and creativity. The success of the Apple II led to Apple's initial public offering, IPO, on December 12, 1980. It was one of the most successful IPOs in history, making Jobs and Wozniak multimillionaires overnight. Jobs was just 25 years old. The Macintosh era and a tumultuous departure. 1983 to 1985. Despite the triumph of the Apple II, Jobs was already looking towards the future. He became fascinated by a project at Xerox PARC, Palo Alto Research Center, which was developing groundbreaking technologies like the Graphical User Interface, GUI, the mouse, and Ethernet networking. In late 1979, Jobs arranged a visit to Park for himself and a team of Apple engineers. What they saw there, particularly the intuitive visual way of interacting with a computer using icons, windows, and a mouse, was a revelation. Jobs immediately recognized the GUI as the future of personal computing. He spearheaded a new project at Apple to create a computer based on these principles. Initially, he was involved with the Lisa project, but due to his often disruptive management style, he was eventually removed from it. Undeterred, he took over a smaller skunkworks-style project called Macintosh, envisioning it as a more affordable and accessible GUI-based computer. A computer for the rest of us. The development of the Macintosh was a period of intense creativity, passion, and immense pressure. Jobs assembled a team of brilliant and dedicated engineers and designers, whom he famously referred to as pirates, rebelling against the more corporate navy of the Lisa team. He drove them to their limits, demanding innovation and elegance in every aspect of the product, from the hardware to the software to the fonts. Here, his calligraphy class paid dividends. He was obsessed with the user experience, insisting on simplicity and intuitive design. The Macintosh was launched in January 1984 with an iconic Super Bowl commercial titled 1984, directed by Ridley Scott. The ad, depicting a rebellious woman smashing a screen broadcasting a Big Brother-like figure, symbolized Apple's challenge to the dominance of IBM in the computer industry. The Macintosh itself was a marvel of design and user-friendliness, introducing concepts like the desktop metaphor, drag and drop, and the mouse to a mass audience. It was hailed as a revolutionary product. However, the initial Macintosh, while groundbreaking, had its limitations. It was relatively underpowered, had limited memory, lacked a hard drive, and had a high price point, $2,495. Sales, after an initial surge, began to falter. This, coupled with Jobs' increasingly confrontational management style and disagreements over the company's direction, led to a power struggle with John Sculley, the CEO Jobs had recruited from Pepsi-Cola in 1983, with the legendary pitch, "Do you want to sell sugared water for the rest of your life, or do you want to come with me and change the world?" The conflict between Jobs and Sculley escalated throughout 1985. Sculley, backed by the Apple Board of Directors, felt that Jobs's focus on high-end, expensive products and his disruptive influence were harming the company. In May 1985, following a boardroom showdown, Jobs was stripped of his operational duties at Apple. Feeling betrayed and marginalized in the company he had co-founded, Steve Jobs resigned from Apple in September 1985. It was a stunning and public fall from grace. The Wilderness Years, Next and Pixar, 1985 to 1996. Though ousted from Apple, Jobs was far from finished. At 30 years old, he was still brimming with ideas and ambition. Almost immediately after leaving Apple, he founded Next Inc. His vision for Next was to build powerful, high-end workstations for the higher education and business markets. He took several key Apple employees with him. Next computers were technologically advanced and beautifully designed. The Next Cube, launched in 1988, featured a striking magnesium cube design, a powerful Motorola processor, an advanced object-oriented operating system called Next Step, and innovative software development tools. Tim Berners-Lee would later use a Next computer to develop the World Wide Web at CERN. However, Next computers were also very expensive, limiting their market appeal. Despite critical acclaim for their technology, sales were slow and the company struggled financially. Jobs once again poured his energy into creating aesthetically perfect and technologically sophisticated products. But the commercial success he had experienced with Apple proved elusive. While Next was navigating its challenges, Jobs made another pivotal investment. In 1986, he purchased the graphics group from Lucasfilm's computer division for $10 million and renamed it Pixar. Initially, Pixar was a high-end computer hardware company focused on selling specialized graphics rendering computers, primarily to government and medical clients. However, the company also had a small animation department led by John Lasseter, a talented animator who had previously worked at Disney. Lasseter's team produced short animated films to showcase Pixar's hardware capabilities. These shorts, such as Luxo Jr., featuring the iconic bouncing desk lamp that would become Pixar's mascot, and Tin Toy, garnered critical acclaim and Academy Awards, demonstrating the artistic potential of computer animation. Jobs, initially focused on the hardware side, gradually recognized that Pixar's true future lay in animated content, not just the tools to create it. He shifted the company's focus towards producing full-length animated feature films. This was a risky and expensive endeavor. Jobs personally funded Pixar for years, often on the brink of financial ruin, keeping the dream alive with his own fortune. The gamble paid off spectacularly in 1995 with the release of Toy Story, the first full-length computer-animated feature film. Produced in collaboration with Disney, Toy Story was a global blockbuster, revolutionizing the animation industry and establishing Pixar as a major creative force. Subsequent hits like A Bug's Life and Toy Story 2 solidified Pixar's reputation for storytelling excellence and technological innovation. Pixar's IPO in November 1995, just a week after Toy Story's release, made Jobs a billionaire. His wilderness years had yielded an unexpected and phenomenal success. The triumphant return, resurrecting Apple, 1996 to 2000. Meanwhile, Apple, the company Jobs had co-founded and been forced out of, was struggling. In the mid-1990s, Apple was facing declining market share, a muddled product strategy, and mounting financial losses. It had gone through a succession of CEOs and was widely perceived to be on the brink of collapse. The Apple Newton, an early PDA, had failed to gain traction, and its operating system strategy was in disarray. In a surprising turn of events, Apple announced in December 1996 that it would acquire Next for $429 million. The primary motivation for Apple was to acquire Next Step, Next's robust and modern operating system, which would become the foundation for the next generation of Mac OS. As part of the deal, Steve Jobs returned to Apple as an informal advisor to then CEO Gil Amelio. The company, however, continued to flounder. By mid-1997, Apple's situation was dire. In July 1997, Amelia was ousted by the board, and in a move that signaled a desperate hope for revival, Steve Jobs was named interim CEO ICEO in September. He famously accepted an annual salary of $1. Jobs wasted no time in shaking things up. He brought a renewed sense of urgency, focus, and vision to the ailing company. He ruthlessly cut projects and products he deemed unnecessary or subpar, streamlining Apple's sprawling and confusing product line down to a few key offerings. He famously drew a 2 by 2 grid on a whiteboard, labeling the columns Consumer and Pro and the rows Desktop and Portable, and declared that Apple would focus on making one great product for each quadrant. He also made bold and sometimes controversial decisions. One of the most significant was forging an alliance with Microsoft, Apple's longtime rival. At Macworld Boston in August 1997, Jobs announced that Microsoft would invest $150 million in Apple and commit to developing Microsoft Office for the Mac for the next 5 years. The announcement was met with boos from some in the audience, but it was a crucial move that stabilized Apple and ensured the availability of essential software for its platform. Jobs also focused on revitalizing Apple's brand. He launched the iconic Think Different advertising campaign, which featured black and white portraits of revolutionary figures like Albert Einstein, Mahatma Gandhi, and Martin Luther King Jr., aligning Apple with creativity, individuality, and challenging the status quo. The campaign was a master stroke, reminding the world what Apple stood for and inspiring a new generation of Mac users. The first major product launched under Jobs' renewed leadership was the iMac, introduced in May 1998. The iMac was a radical departure from the beige boxes that dominated the computer industry. Designed by Johnny Ive, who would become Jobs' closest creative partner, the iMac was an all-in-one computer housed in a striking translucent Bondi blue and later other vibrant colors, teardrop-shaped enclosure. It was designed to be easy to set up and use, emphasizing internet connectivity. The I in iMac stood for Internet. The iMac was a runaway hit, selling hundreds of thousands of units and signaling that Apple was back and innovating once more. It was a testament to Jobs' unwavering belief in the power of design and user experience. The golden age of innovation. iPod, iPhone, iPad, 2001 to 2010. With Apple stabilized and profitable, Jobs, who officially became CEO in January 2000, dropping the interim title, embarked on a period of unprecedented innovation that would transform not just Apple, but entire industries. The first major disruption came in the music industry. Recognizing the rise of digital music and the clunky user-unfriendly MP3 players available at the time, Jobs envisioned a device that was small, elegant, and easy to use, with a massive storage capacity. The result was the iPod, launched in October 2001 with the tagline 1,000 songs in your pocket. Coupled with the iTunes software, initially a Mac-only music management program that later expanded to include the iTunes Store. The iPod revolutionized how people bought, listened to, and organized their music. The iTunes Store, launched in 2003, offered legal music downloads for 99 cents a song, providing a viable alternative to music piracy and fundamentally changing the music industry's business model. Jobs then set his sights on the mobile phone market. He was frustrated by the complexity and poor design of existing smartphones. He envisioned a device that combined a phone, an internet communicator, and an iPod into one sleek, intuitive package, controlled by a revolutionary multi-touch interface. After years of secret and intense development, Jobs unveiled the iPhone in January 2007. The iPhone was a game changer, redefining the smartphone category and ushering in the era of mobile computing. Its elegant hardware and operating system, iOS, built for touch, and the App Store, launched in 2008, which allowed third-party developers to create and sell applications, created a powerful ecosystem that transformed how people communicated, accessed information, played games, and consumed media. Following the phenomenal success of the iPhone, Jobs introduced another category-defining product, the iPad. Unveiled in January 2010, the iPad was a tablet computer that filled the gap between a smartphone and a laptop. While met with some initial skepticism, the iPad quickly proved to be a hit, popular for web browse, email, reading ebooks, watching videos, and playing games. It pioneered a new category of mobile devices and further solidified Apple's dominance in the consumer electronics market. Under Jobs' leadership, Apple became a design powerhouse, known for its sleek minimalist aesthetics, meticulous attention to detail, and seamless integration of hardware and software. He fostered a culture of innovation, secrecy, and excellence. His product launch presentations, known as Stevenotes, became legendary events where he would captivate audiences with his showmanship and passion for Apple's latest creations. He was a master marketer and storyteller, able to create an aura of desire and excitement around Apple products. Leadership style, personality, and health. 1997 to 2011. Steve Jobs' leadership style was complex and often paradoxical. He was a visionary who could see the future and inspire his teams to create it. He had an uncanny ability to identify and recruit top talent. He was fiercely passionate about Apple's products and demanded the highest standards of quality and craftsmanship. Joni Ive, Apple's chief design officer, described Jobs' relentless pursuit of simplicity. His Sachen, German for things or stuff, were that he was always trying to make things simpler, clearer, more intuitive. However, he was also known for his intense, demanding, and often abrasive personality. He could be brutally honest, dismissive of ideas he didn't like, and prone to outbursts of anger. Employees who worked closely with him described a reality distortion field. His ability to convince people that almost anything was possible, pushing them to achieve feats they didn't think they could. While this drove incredible innovation, it also created a high pressure and sometimes intimidating work environment. He was a perfectionist who obsessed over every detail, from the internal layout of a circuit board to the packaging of a product. His personal life was often kept private. He married Lorene Powell in 1991, and they had 3 children, Reed, Aaron, and Eve. Jobs also had a daughter, Lisa Brennan Jobs, from a previous relationship with Chrisanne Brennan, whom he initially denied paternity of, but later reconciled with. In October 2003, Jobs was diagnosed with a rare form of pancreatic cancer, a neuroendocrine tumor. Initially, he resisted conventional medical treatment, opting instead for alternative therapies, including a special diet, for 9 months. This decision was later a source of regret for him and a subject of much debate. He eventually underwent surgery in July 2004 to remove the tumor. He continued to lead Apple, though his health became a subject of public speculation, particularly after he appeared gaunt at several public events. In January 2009, he took a 6-month medical leave, during which he received a liver transplant. He returned to Apple in June 2009, but his health remained fragile. On August 24, 2011, Steve Jobs resigned as CEO of Apple, recommending Tim Cook, Apple's chief operating officer, as his successor. In his resignation letter, Jobs wrote, "I have always said if there ever came a day when I could no longer meet my duties and expectations as Apple's CEO, I would be the first to let you know." Unfortunately, that day has come. He remained chairman of the board. Death and enduring legacy. Steve Jobs passed away on October 5, 2011, at the age of 56 due to complications from pancreatic cancer. His death was met with an outpouring of grief and tributes from around the world. He was mourned not just as a brilliant entrepreneur and innovator, but as a visionary who had profoundly shaped modern culture. Steve Jobs' legacy is immense and multifaceted. He co-founded one of the most valuable and influential companies in the world. He spearheaded the development of products that transformed personal computing, Apple II, Macintosh, the animation industry, Pixar, the music industry, iPod and iTunes, mobile communications, iPhone, and personal electronics, iPad. These products didn't just change industries, they changed how people live, work, communicate, and create. His emphasis on design, simplicity, and user experience set new standards for the technology industry and beyond. He understood that technology alone was not enough. It needed to be combined with the liberal arts and humanities to create products that were not just powerful, but also intuitive, elegant, and emotionally resonant. As he famously said when launching the iPad 2, it's in Apple's DNA that technology alone is not enough. It's technology married with liberal arts, married with the humanities, that yields us the results that make our hearts sing. He was a master showman and marketer, able to create an unparalleled sense of anticipation and desire for Apple products. The think different philosophy he championed continues to inspire creativity and innovation. Beyond the products, Jobs' story is one of resilience, passion, and an unwavering belief in one's vision. He experienced spectacular successes and crushing failures, yet he always found a way to bounce back, driven by an insatiable desire to make a dent in the universe. He was a complex and often contradictory figure, demanding and inspiring, intuitive and analytical, a counterculture rebel who became a captain of industry. His Stanford commencement address in 2005, where he shared stories about connecting the dots, love and loss, and death, remains a powerful and enduring message about living a life of purpose and passion. His closing words, "Stay hungry, stay foolish," have become a mantra for entrepreneurs, innovators, and dreamers everywhere. Steve Jobs was more than just the sum of his inventions or the value of his company. He was a force of nature who challenged conventions, pushed boundaries, and fundamentally changed the way we interact with technology and with each other. His impact will be felt for generations to come, a testament to the power of one individual's vision, passion, and relentless pursuit of excellence. He truly did think different, and in doing so, he reshaped our world.